In Ohio, early voting began this week in a rare and, frankly, onerous August election that was shoved onto the calendar by the state's gerrymandered Republican legislature. It is a last-minute, desperate attempt by Republican lawmakers to stop their own voters from approving a fall Election Day ballot measure that would enshrine abortion rights into the Ohio state constitution. This August ballot measure, a few months before then, would raise the threshold needed to pass constitutional amendments from a simple majority to 60%, meaning that if this one's successful, which they're hoping to sort of sneak past people, then the abortion rights amendment that's going to be on the ballot in the fall would have to win over 60% of the vote as opposed to a simple majority. Not long ago, these same Republicans decried August elections, voted to ban effectively most of them. But there are no lengths to which they will not go to make sure that every woman who gets pregnant in Ohio is forced to give birth. David Pepper is a former chair of the Ohio Democratic Party, author of the new book, Saving Democracy, a User's Manual for Every American. He's been chronicling all the ongoing anti-democratic efforts of Republicans in Ohio and states across the country. David, great to have you on. I continue to think this is one of the most sort of like bald-faced, brazen stunts that any Republican legislature has pulled. How are things going with what's now called Issue 1 in your state?
It is bold-faced, and what we're seeing here is a Republican Party that's gotten away with lawlessness for the last couple of years. And as we see everywhere in the country, when someone or some entity feels no accountability for being lawless, they double down, they triple down, and that's what this is. The first week of early vote is underway, and it seems to be off to a good start. We're seeing in more Democratic-leaning counties that we presume will be more likely to vote no, 5 and 10 times the turnout of last August. In more rural Republican-leaning counties, it's been 2 to 4 times maybe. So clearly people, the whole point of an August election for them was do it when no one's paying attention, do it when people are off on summer break or something. And the good news is people are working incredibly hard to basically knock on every door, make every phone call, send postcards so that people are seeing what this is and how, as you say, blatant an attempt it is to basically lock in minority rule when it comes to this November beyond. And it seems to at least be off to a good start now. People, again, it's not August 8th, the election. It's between now and August 8th. The more that people vote early, the better. And it's off to a decent start.
So for the folks that are, it is called Issue 1, right? So the folks that want to keep abortion banned or ban abortion in Ohio want a yes. The folks that want to keep that threshold at 50% are voting no. And I was wondering how the yes folks, right, the opponents of abortion rights and people who are trying to push to make it harder to amend the Constitution were going to message it. Because at one level saying make it hard to amend the Constitution is going to be hard messaging. And then if you go to the real issue, right, abortion, that's going to be hard messaging. So I was not surprised to see that this is one of the ads that the pro-Issue 1 folks are running about, of course, trans folks. Take a listen.
You promised you'd keep the bad guys away, protect her. Now's your chance. Out-of-state special interests that put trans ideology in classrooms and encourage sex changes for kids are hiding behind slick ads. Don't be fooled.
We saw messaging like this on Michigan when they had a state constitutional amendment on abortion. What do you think of those ads?
I don't even understand how that has any relevance to the Issue 1. Here's the problem for them. Like, not only is abortion at 60% in Ohio, like Iowa, so they can't talk about it. They literally had a polling call that someone leaked, and they said, whatever we do, don't make it an abortion. But the other thing they're trying to do, when you think about it, is they're trying to convince a group of people, Ohioans, to take power from themselves and give it to politicians who happen to be the most corrupt politicians in the country. That's a really hard thing to ask. Most people in America right now aren't exactly excited to give more power to politicians. So they can't run on what they're doing. So it's got to be, one lie after the next, or an ad like that, which is totally changing the subject, has nothing to do with what's on the ballot in August. So they really are stuck without a message. And I think that's why you see, some of the officials behind this are lashing out right now because I think it's not going very well. The ads are absurd because the heart of their argument is offensive. And that's why we're seeing Kasich, Bob Taft, the Libertarian Party, and others all coming together and saying, even if they happen to be against abortion access, This is crazy. This is absolutely undemocratic. And so we see this broad coalition against it because, as you said, it's so aggressive, it's so illegitimate, and it's been done in such an inappropriate way, scheduling on a date that they made illegal only months ago.
You just called it one of the most corrupt state houses in the country. And of course, that's always very, very competitive category. But if I'm not mistaken, the former Republican Speaker of the Ohio House, if I'm not mistaken, was recently sentenced to quite a long sentence for a big corruption conviction.
Yeah, he just got sentenced to 20 years 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. So they are literally asking, as the biggest bribery scandal in Ohio history plays out, hey, why don't we give those people more power? And why don't we lock meaning the politicians, and why don't we lock the voters of Ohio more out of their government so they can't hold the most corrupt state house accountable? By the way, when I say that, it's not me saying it. That was the headline in USA Today a couple years ago when this bribery scandal first broke, that's what the FBI considered the most corrupt state house in the country, right here in Ohio. There's been not one reform to actually improve the ethics or lawfulness of Ohio's state house since that scandal. The only actually make them even less accountable than before, even though before is what led to the largest bribery scandal in the history of Ohio. So special interests are lining up to support this thing because they know this will mean they have more of a lock on the state house, and the people who don't like what they're doing can do less about it than they can today if this thing passes.
Really is an audacious thing to just shove this thing in August, say vote to raise the threshold to 60%. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this, but we'll see what the voters of Ohio think about it.
I was just saying, they're just saying, take away your own power while we maintain the corrupt system we have. It's a terrible argument, which is why you have the absurd ad you just showed. They have to change the subject.